Okay, so this is very interesting. So I've heard there was a Frederick Lancaster, Lancaster,
Lanchester.
Lanchester, the father of Lanchester Square collapse military attrition equations. So what it basically says is the longer a military army or an army has fights and new people come into the army, the less capable the army becomes. And so, because this guy, Trent, I follow him on Twitter. He's conservative. He leans right, and he comments a lot on this stuff because he's following very. He used to be, I think, in the army, if I'm not mistaken. And so he looks at the lack of armor, and you got the Russians running around on electric scooters in open fields and stuff like that, which I think there probably should be some pictures. I don't know if it's this slide or the next one, but the equation becomes at what point does because what happens is if you look at like the Russian army that started the war and the Ukrainian army that started the war, most of those experienced people are either dead or hopefully they are in the rear teaching the new people coming up. Because like what the Russians were doing is they were just throwing everybody in the front lines. And what happens is everybody gets either killed or too severely wounded to return to combat. And then each new person that they send out on the front lines is less and less trained than the previous ones. We saw that with the Germans during World War II, where you had little boys and old men on the front lines that didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And so it's the army that Ukraine and Russia is fighting with today is not the same army that they started with. And the Russians just have gone through their Soviet stockpiles of tanks and APCs, and they're just not able to produce them fast enough. And so they're basically issuing motorcycles and electric scooters to their troops to get around on because they don't have any more armor to travel. So maybe you get X that image. Let's scroll down, see if there's any other. So yeah, click the. So that's the how the Russians started out. You see a bunch of tanks, and this is the Russians. This is how they get around now on electric scooters because
Uh,
they don't even have vehicles to get around. And you can say, well, if they were in a vehicle, the drone could hit the vehicle and kill everybody in the vehicle. But if they're running around on these electric scooters, it takes one drone per
Scooter.
soldier to take them out. But that's just insane when you think about it. That was it the third or fourth largest, or the Russians claim they're the second most powerful military in the world behind the United States, and yet they got electric scooters that they're issuing to their troops to get around on.
They should get dirt bikes.
They have those too. And so he said another thing he says is Russian radios are mostly mounted on their vehicles, as Russian vehicles lack small auxiliary engines to recharge their batteries. Roughly 8 hours after Russian vehicles run out of fuel, most Russian military radio communications will end as well. No comms equals no bombs. So if you scroll down, there's a nice little video. You can blow that up of you'll see some AAA going up, anti-aircraft fire, and obviously the drones are getting through. That looks like a missile. But, you can see this is another Russian oil refinery that's on fire and getting blown up. So at some point, if they're able to seize up the Russian infrastructure, because they got gas lines and problems in Russia, which is also going to piss off the native population because they're feeling the effects of the war now. Whereas before they were just kind of going about their lives, it wasn't a big deal, unless of course they were in the front lines. And this is just so you can click into these images, Chuck. And so this is the anti-drone netting that the Ukrainians and the Russians are using. So you got the normal road, the highway, and then you got the military, because the drones are not able to, to at least initially get through it. And so the idea is they race through these, tunnels and nets so the drones can't hit them so they can get to where they're going. It's just crazy how modern warfare changes so much that they're adapting on the battlefield. This was the video that I was playing the other day, and it was driving the dogs crazy. So this is a propeller-driven um, drone that ends up flying into some building.
Oh shit.
Oh.
Oh, jeez.
So no matter how bad you think your life is, you're not in Kharkiv, Ukraine, dodging shrapnel from explosions.
Just a man selling eggs, watching
Just a
buildings.
dude selling eggs and watches a bomb crash into a building. I don't know if it's a residential building or what. Oh, so this is what I was talking about earlier in the podcast. This guy, fugitive vaccine researcher behind the infamous no autism link study that everybody quotes and says that because YouTube, at least in the past, I don't know now, but you're they say that it may have changed because Kennedy, I think is I don't know if he's changed it yet, but you're not allowed to say that there's a link between vaccines and autism. And so this guy here is the actual former CDC scientist who basically did the study. His name is Paul Thorson. He was a co-author of their no autism link study. So he was just arrested in Germany for embezzling about $1 million. He'd been on the run for a few years when they just fucking finally caught his ass. So that's one of the things that Kennedy is working on, is because he said by September we're going to know what's causing autism. And a couple of weeks ago he was saying I think it was aluminum, the aluminum reagents in some of the vaccines, or exposure to aluminum is at least that's one of the causes that they've got. It's one of the reagents that's used. So this is an Arab. He's an Arab Muslim, lives in Israel, and he says,
Do you just want me to play it?
I don't. It might be. It's all probably translated, but we can play it in a bit. But he says the only true democracy that exists in the Middle East is obviously Israel, and most people don't know that Israel is 20% Arab Muslim. They also serve in the IDF. It's not just a bunch of Jews going after the poor little Palestinians. It's Israeli Jews, Israeli Muslims, Israeli Christians, Israeli Druze fighters, all fighting together, going after Hamas. Again, the media doesn't talk about this stuff because they're incompetent and they suck and they're liars and they're dishonest. So yeah, you can play this for a little bit. I don't remember what the sound is like. Oh, he's speaking English.
Maybe it's time in Spain to know exactly the truth and stop following the narrative of a terrorist organization. I really hope, I dare you to present this on TV. Put translation on it. Show the Spanish people the truth. Don't let them lie and spread the narrative of a terrorist organization. Be a very, very strong and bold journalist. Show them the truth. And if you want, I can say it also in the Arabic language. دولة إسرائيل هي الدولة الديمقراطية الوحيدة في الشرق الأوسط.
Speaking Arabic.
افهموها وحطوها في راسكم.
Arabic, I mean. So again, that will never make the evening news. The people on the left will never fucking see that clip, but you got a Arab Israeli basically, because we showed that clip, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago. The guy that used to work for the AP, Associated Press, who set up their reporting bureau in Gaza when Hamas took over, he came right out and said that, anytime somebody reported the truth that was not flattering to Hamas, that person got threatened. And if they didn't revoke their reporting, they would get killed. And so the only people that report from Gaza are sympathetic to Hamas or they're members of Hamas, because they don't tolerate, just like Al Qaeda in Iraq and Afghanistan did not tolerate the truth getting out. And so, unfortunately, the AP knows this and they don't give a fuck. They won't do anything about it. So they just allow the bullshit to come out of Gaza and the West Bank, and it just gets reported as if it's truth when it's all bullshit. It's all war propaganda. Al Qaeda did the same thing to us, and we had a hell of a fucking time in Iraq because of it. It's like most of the time we had Al Qaeda propaganda coming across our evening news because they had what was called stringers working for Al Qaeda, Because again, Al Qaeda would kill anybody who didn't report what they wanted reported, and of course our mainstream media, because they suck and they're incompetent and they're corrupt, would just report it as gospel. Oh, this is an interesting stat. So we talked about this yesterday briefly in the podcast, and it says 75% of all cases that are handled by MI5 are about 90% of the people under surveillance on suspicion of terrorism in Britain are extremist Muslims. This is despite the fact that only 6.5% of them make up the total population. So 90% of the people doing terrorism are, yeah, we can play this. He's really good. Constant. But he was he turned into a vaccine fascist during the lockdown. That's the one thing I don't fucking like about it.
The fact remains, 75% of MI5's caseload involves Islamist terrorism, with over 90% of the 43,000 people on MI5's terror watch list being Islamist extremists.
So remember, more people joined ISIS than joined the British military, by the way. They got a problem over there. And, you know, unfortunately, Prince Charles is just, he lives in his little castle. He has no fucking clue what's going on. Or maybe he does and he's just, you know, thinks it's a good idea. But you listen to him talk, it's just, you know, you got Keir Starmer going, the main threat facing the UK is Islamophobia. It's the same thing that the Democrats were saying. Because the left always works with the Islamists because they see everybody as victim groups that they can use. And they don't really, you know, it's like all the queers for Palestine. They have no idea that they would absolutely be slaughtered if they went to Palestine. And the Islamists will absolutely slaughter them if they get the chance. But, you know, they don't know any better because, again, the college professors that are teaching them know nothing because they go to school, they go to college, they get educated, and then they start teaching. They actually live and work in the real world.